What does it truly mean to find yourself? In today's world, filled with social media influences, societal expectations, and the constant noise of external opinions, discovering your real self is often an uphill battle. But this quest is not new. It's an age-old struggle, one that Soren Kierkegaard, a 19th century philosopher, faced head-on. Kierkegaard wasn't just a thinker. He was a trailblazer, dissecting what it means to live authentically in a world that pushes conformity. Through his philosophical writings, Kierkegaard explored how despair, choice, and faith intertwine in the search for meaning. He laid the groundwork for what we now call existentialism, urging us to confront life's contradictions and embrace individuality. As we delve into his life, ideas, and enduring lessons, you'll find not just insights, but practical steps to start your own journey toward authenticity. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a deeper understanding of Kierkegaard's philosophy and actionable tools to apply his teachings in your life. Whether you're grappling with despair, questioning your path, or seeking deeper meaning, this journey will resonate with you. 1. Soren Kierkegaard's life, a study in complexity. 1.1. Early life and family influence. Born on May 5, 1813, in Copenhagen, Denmark, Soren Kierkegaard grew up in a household marked by wealth and deep religious devotion. Yet, beneath the surface of privilege lay a profound sense of melancholy, stemming from his father's guilt and belief in a family curse. Michael Pedersen Kierkegaard, Soren's father, was a self-made man, rising from poverty to amass significant wealth. But his success came at a cost. His early transgressions and a youthful act of cursing God weighed heavily on his conscience. This guilt infused Soren's upbringing with a heavy religious intensity. His father introduced him to the Lutheran faith and the Moravian congregation, emphasizing themes of sin, redemption, and divine grace. This environment shaped Soren's early worldview, blending privilege with an acute awareness of spiritual and moral responsibilities. 1.2. Education and initial philosophical pursuits. Soren's academic journey was equally complex. He enrolled at the University of Copenhagen to study theology, intending to follow the path of a Lutheran pastor. However, his intellectual curiosity led him to philosophy, where he began grappling with questions of existence, faith, and individuality. His magister dissertation on Socratic irony hinted at the themes he would later develop, questioning societal norms and emphasizing personal responsibility. Despite completing his theological studies, Soren chose not to pursue ordination. This decision marked a turning point, reflecting his growing disillusionment with institutionalized religion and his desire to explore faith on his own terms. 1.3. The broken engagement with Regine Olsen. In 1840, Kierkegaard proposed to Regine Olsen, a woman he deeply loved. Yet, just a year later, he broke off the engagement, citing his melancholic nature as the reason. This decision haunted him for the rest of his life and became a recurring theme in his writings. He believed that his inner struggles and spiritual burdens would prevent him from making Regine happy, leading him to sacrifice their relationship for what he saw as a higher purpose. This heartbreak became a wellspring of creativity, plunging Soren into a period of prolific writing. His exploration of despair, guilt, and individuality was deeply personal, reflecting his own inner conflicts. 2. The father of existentialism, core philosophical contributions. 2.1. Rejection of essentialism. At the heart of Kierkegaard's philosophy was a rejection of essentialism, the idea that human beings have a fixed essence that defines their purpose. Essentialism, rooted in the works of Plato and Aristotle, posits that existence follows essence. In other words, a person's life is predetermined by their inherent nature or purpose. Kierkegaard turned this notion on its head. For him, existence precedes essence. He argued that individuals are not bound by predetermined roles or purposes, but must create their own meaning through choices and actions. This radical idea laid the foundation for existentialism, later echoed by philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre. 2.2. The concept of subjectivity. Kierkegaard believed that truth is subjective, rooted in personal experiences rather than universal principles. For him, the quest for truth was not about discovering objective facts, but about engaging with life's profound questions on a deeply personal level. This emphasis on subjectivity challenged the dominant philosophical traditions of his time, particularly Hegelianism, which prioritized universal truths and historical progress. Kierkegaard argued that such abstractions overlooked the lived experiences of individuals. 2.3 Individual versus the crowd. One of Kierkegaard's most striking critiques was of the crowd, a metaphor for societal conformity. He believed that individuals often lose themselves in the collective, sacrificing their authenticity for the comfort of acceptance. True individuality, he argued, requires breaking away from the crowd and embracing one's unique path, even if it means facing alienation or despair. 3. The 3 stages of life. Pathways to the real self. Kierkegaard's philosophical framework for understanding life centers on 3 distinct stages of existence: the aesthetic, the ethical, and the religious. These stages represent progressive ways of engaging with the world and finding meaning. Each stage builds upon the limitations of the previous one, reflecting Kierkegaard's belief in personal growth and the transformative journey toward self-realization. The aesthetic stage, the pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of responsibility. The aesthetic stage is the starting point for many individuals, a life focused on the pursuit of beauty, pleasure, and personal gratification. At this stage, people seek to avoid discomfort and responsibility by immersing themselves in superficial joys, such as art, entertainment, relationships, or material wealth. This approach to life is characterized by its focus on the external world and its distractions, often at the expense of introspection or deeper meaning. Characteristics of the aesthetic stage. Hedonism, a relentless pursuit of pleasure, from physical indulgences to intellectual stimulation. Escapism, avoiding existential questions about purpose, morality, or death. Subjectivism, a tendency to live for oneself, disregarding broader moral or spiritual concerns. While the aesthetic life can appear fulfilling on the surface, Kierkegaard warned that it is inherently unstable. The avoidance of deeper reflection leads to a sense of existential despair, a realization that life's fleeting pleasures cannot provide lasting meaning. Despair in the aesthetic stage. Kierkegaard identified despair as the silent undercurrent of the aesthetic stage. This despair manifests in 2 forms: immediate despair, found in unreflective individuals who are unaware of their deeper existential needs. Their lives are marked by an endless cycle of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. Reflective despair. More self-aware individuals recognize the emptiness of their pursuits but feel powerless to escape them. This deeper despair often leads to feelings of alienation and meaninglessness. Modern examples of the aesthetic stage. Consider modern society's obsession with social media, consumerism, and entertainment. Many individuals curate their lives to present an image of happiness and success. Yet, behind the filtered photos lies a deeper dissatisfaction. This phenomenon mirrors Kierkegaard's warning about the aesthetic stage. The pursuit of external validation often leaves the individual feeling hollow. The aesthetic stage ultimately becomes a dead end. Its temporary highs are overshadowed by the persistent question, is this all there is to life? 3.2. The ethical stage: responsibility, commitment, and moral growth. The ethical stage begins when individuals confront the limitations of the aesthetic life and seek a deeper sense of purpose. At this stage, people move beyond self-indulgence to embrace responsibility, morality, and the well-being of others. It represents a shift from living for pleasure to living with integrity and a sense of duty. Characteristics of the ethical stage: moral accountability, a commitment to living in accordance with ethical principles. Purposeful living, a focus on contributing to society, building meaningful relationships, and striving for personal growth. Self-reflection, a willingness to examine one's actions and take responsibility for their consequences. The ethical stage marks a significant progression in self-awareness. Individuals at this stage recognize their role within a larger moral framework and seek to align their lives with values that transcend personal gratification. Challenges of the ethical stage. While the ethical stage offers a more meaningful approach to life, it is not without its struggles. Kierkegaard noted that even the most virtuous individuals are limited by human imperfection. Despite their best efforts, they cannot fully resolve the existential tension between their finite existence and the infinite longing for meaning. For example, a person may dedicate their life to helping others, but they may still experience moments of doubt, failure, or inadequacy. This tension creates what Kierkegaard called ethical despair, a realization that moral efforts, while noble, cannot fully address the deeper questions of existence. Modern examples of the ethical stage. Imagine a professional deeply committed to social justice, tirelessly working to improve the lives of others. While their work provides a sense of purpose, they may still grapple with feelings of burnout or frustration at the limits of their impact. This struggle reflects the ethical stage's central paradox. The pursuit of moral ideals often reveals the need for a greater source of meaning beyond human effort. 3.3. The religious stage: transcending reason through faith. The religious stage represents the culmination of Kierkegaard's existential journey. It is here that individuals move beyond the limitations of the aesthetic and ethical stages to embrace a direct, personal relationship with God. This stage is characterized by a leap of faith, where reason and morality give way to trust in the divine. Characteristics of the religious stage: faith in the absurd, accepting truths that transcend human understanding, such as the paradoxical nature of divine grace. Surrender of self, letting go of ego, pride, and reliance on personal achievements to find fulfillment in God's presence. Infinite hope, finding peace and meaning in the belief that life's ultimate purpose lies in the infinite. The leap of faith. At the heart of the religious stage is the concept of the leap of faith. For Kierkegaard, faith is not a rational act, but a deeply personal decision to trust in something greater than oneself. This leap requires individuals to confront their doubts, fears, and limitations, choosing to believe in God despite the seeming absurdity of divine truths. One of Kierkegaard's most famous illustrations of the leap of faith is the story of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son, guided solely by his trust in God, exemplifies the paradoxical nature of faith. While such an act defies reason and morality, it reflects an absolute commitment to the divine. Religious despair and redemption. Even within the religious stage, individuals may experience moments of doubt or despair. However, these struggles are transformative, leading to greater spiritual growth and a deeper understanding of divine grace. Kierkegaard described this process as a journey of self-surrender, where individuals relinquish their finite concerns to embrace the infinite. Modern examples of the religious stage. In contemporary terms, the religious stage may be seen in individuals who dedicate their lives to spiritual practices, such as monks, nuns, or lay people deeply committed to their faith. Their journeys often involve sacrifices, moments of doubt, and profound acts of trust in God's plan. For instance, a person facing a terminal illness may find peace not in scientific explanations or moral reasoning, but in their faith in a higher power. This faith enables them to confront their mortality with courage and hope, embodying the transformative power of the religious stage. 3.4 Progression through the stages. Kierkegaard emphasized that the stages of life are not isolated choices, but a progression. Each stage prepares the individual for the next, with the aesthetic leading to the ethical and, ultimately, to the religious. This progression reflects the existential journey of self-discovery, where individuals confront their limitations, embrace their responsibilities, and seek a deeper connection with the infinite. However, not everyone progresses through all three stages. Some remain trapped in the aesthetic or ethical stages, unable or unwilling to take the leap of faith. For Kierkegaard, the willingness to embrace the religious stage is the ultimate test of authenticity, a choice that requires courage, humility, and trust. Conclusion: the pathway to the real self. The three stages of life offer a profound framework for understanding the human journey toward authenticity and meaning. Whether you find yourself in the aesthetic stage, searching for deeper fulfillment, or grappling with the challenges of the ethical stage, Kierkegaard's philosophy provides a roadmap for growth. Ultimately, the religious stage invites us to transcend our limitations and embrace a faith that defies reason, offering a pathway to the real self. This journey, though challenging, is deeply rewarding. As Kierkegaard reminds us, life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. 4. Abraham's Sacrifice, the Leap of Faith. One of Soren Kierkegaard's most powerful and enduring contributions to philosophy lies in his interpretation of the story of Abraham and Isaac, found in the book of Genesis. This story, which he explores in depth in his work Fear and Trembling, serves as a cornerstone of his existential thought. Kierkegaard uses this tale to illustrate the paradoxical nature of faith and the profound existential challenges it poses. By analyzing Abraham's actions, Kierkegaard reveals the complexity of what he calls the leap of faith, a radical commitment to trust in God that transcends reason, ethics, and societal norms. 4.1 Fear and Trembling. Analyzing the biblical story. The story of Abraham and Isaac is, at its core, a test of faith. God commands Abraham to sacrifice his beloved son, Isaac, a seemingly incomprehensible demand that defies both reason and morality. Abraham's decision to obey, even in the face of such a harrowing request, epitomizes the ultimate act of faith. Kierkegaard begins Fear and Trembling by posing a question. How can we make sense of Abraham's actions? On one level, they appear barbaric, an act that no ethical system could condone. Yet, from another perspective, they represent an extraordinary relationship with the divine, one that surpasses human understanding. The central paradox. At the heart of the story is a paradox. Abraham is both obedient to God and willing to violate the ethical duty to protect his son. Kierkegaard describes this as a teleological suspension of the ethical, a temporary suspension of universal moral principles for the sake of a higher divine purpose. This suspension is not an abandonment of ethics, but a recognition that faith operates on a different plane, one that transcends the ethical. Abraham's faith does not negate morality. Rather, it requires him to act in a way that is incomprehensible to others. This paradox challenges our understanding of faith, revealing its deeply personal and subjective nature. 4.2. Faith versus reason. Kierkegaard's interpretation of Abraham's story emphasizes the tension between faith and reason. For most people, reason and ethics provide a framework for understanding the world and making decisions. However, faith, as Kierkegaard describes it, requires stepping beyond these frameworks and embracing the absurd nature of faith. The absurd, in Kierkegaard's philosophy, refers to situations that defy logical explanation. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac is absurd because it contradicts everything we understand about morality and the natural order. Yet, it is precisely this absurdity that makes Abraham's faith so profound. He does not rely on reason to justify his actions. Instead, he trusts in God's promise, even when it seems impossible. For example, Abraham believes that God will fulfill his promise to make Isaac the father of a great nation, despite the command to sacrifice him. This belief requires Abraham to hold two contradictory ideas simultaneously: that he must sacrifice Isaac, and that Isaac will live to fulfill God's promise. Such faith cannot be explained through logic. It can only be experienced through a deep, personal relationship with the divine. Faith as an individual journey. Kierkegaard argues that faith is inherently individual. No one can fully understand or share in Abraham's experience. It is a solitary journey that requires absolute trust in God. This individuality sets faith apart from collective religious practices or dogmas, which Kierkegaard often criticized for promoting conformity rather than genuine belief. 4.3. The Knight of Faith versus the Tragic Hero. In Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard contrasts Abraham, the Knight of Faith, with the tragic hero, a figure who sacrifices for the greater good of society. While the tragic hero's actions are noble and understandable within an ethical framework, the Knight of Faith's actions defy explanation. The tragic hero. The tragic hero, such as Sophocles' Antigone or Shakespeare's Hamlet, sacrifices personal happiness or even their life for the sake of a higher moral cause. Their actions are comprehensible within the ethical sphere, as they align with universal principles of justice, loyalty, or duty. For instance, Antigone's decision to bury her brother, defying the king's orders, is motivated by her loyalty to family and the gods. While her actions lead to personal suffering, they are celebrated as virtuous and heroic within her cultural and moral context. The Knight of Faith. In contrast, the Knight of Faith operates outside the realm of universal ethics. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac cannot be justified by any moral principle or societal norm. From an ethical perspective, his actions appear monstrous. Yet, from a religious perspective, they embody the highest form of obedience to God. Faith in the unknown. In a broader sense, the leap of faith challenges us to confront the uncertainties of life with courage and trust. Whether it involves starting a new venture, moving to a foreign country, or simply embracing change, the leap requires letting go of fear and embracing the possibilities of the unknown. 4.6. Abraham's story, a symbol of ultimate faith. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac remains one of the most profound symbols of faith in religious and philosophical thought. It challenges us to examine the limits of reason, morality, and human understanding, pushing us to consider what it means to trust in something greater than ourselves. Kierkegaard's interpretation of this story reminds us that faith is not easy. It is a journey marked by doubt, struggle, and paradox. Yet, it is through this journey that we discover the depth of our relationship with the divine and the true nature of our existence. As Kierkegaard writes, faith is the highest passion in a human being. Many in every generation may not come that far, but none comes further. Abraham's leap of faith serves as a timeless reminder of the courage required to embrace life's mysteries and trust in the infinite. 5. Indirect communication. Kierkegaard's methodology. Soren Kierkegaard's unique approach to philosophy extended beyond his ideas to the way he conveyed them. He employed what he called indirect communication, a method that challenges the straightforward delivery of truths, and instead requires the reader or listener to actively engage with the material. This technique reflects Kierkegaard's belief that existential truths, those concerning faith, despair, and the meaning of life, cannot be taught directly, but must be discovered through personal effort and introspection. Through indirect communication, Kierkegaard sought to guide individuals on their existential journey without prescribing specific answers. His use of pseudonyms, paradoxes, and ambiguous narratives invites readers to wrestle with the ideas themselves, making the process of understanding an intensely personal and transformative experience. 5.1. What is indirect communication? Indirect communication contrasts with traditional forms of teaching that rely on direct exposition or argumentation. Instead of plainly stating his conclusions, Kierkegaard often presented his ideas through pseudonymous authorship, where he wrote under fictional names to create diverse perspectives, parables and stories that illustrate concepts without explicitly defining them, paradoxes and irony that provoke thought and challenge conventional understanding. Kierkegaard's goal was to bypass the passive absorption of knowledge. He believed that existential truths could not simply be handed down from teacher to student. They had to be confronted, questioned, and internalized by the individual. This method reflects his deep respect for the subjective nature of truth and his commitment to fostering genuine self-discovery. 5.2. The role of pseudonyms. One of Kierkegaard's most notable techniques was his use of pseudonyms, which allowed him to adopt multiple voices and perspectives. Each pseudonym represented a distinct worldview or philosophical stance, enabling Kierkegaard to explore complex ideas without directly endorsing them. For example, Johannes Climacus, a humorous, skeptical thinker who critiques the limitations of systematic philosophy. Judge William, a proponent of the ethical life, emphasizing moral responsibility and commitment. Anti-Climacus, a deeply religious figure who articulates the highest ideals of Christian faith. By writing under pseudonyms, Kierkegaard created a space for readers to engage with ideas without feeling pressured to accept them as definitive truths. This approach mirrors the complexity of human existence, where multiple perspectives coexist and where individuals must navigate their own paths to understanding. Example: either or in his seminal work. Either or, Kierkegaard contrasts the aesthetic and ethical stages of life through two pseudonymous characters. A, who represents the aesthetic stage and celebrates the pursuit of pleasure and beauty. Judge William, who advocates for the ethical stage, emphasizing responsibility and moral growth. Rather than overtly judging one perspective as superior, Kierkegaard presents the two views in dialogue, leaving it to the reader to grapple with the implications and draw their own conclusions. This method encourages active participation, as readers must engage with the text to uncover its deeper meanings. 5.3. Parables, Stories, and Metaphors. Another hallmark of Kierkegaard's indirect communication is his use of parables, stories, and metaphors. These narrative devices allow him to convey profound truths in a way that resonates emotionally and intellectually. The Parable of the Leap of Faith. One of Kierkegaard's most famous metaphors is the leap of faith, which he uses to describe the act of trusting in God despite the absence of certainty or evidence. He likens this leap to standing on the edge of a cliff, facing an abyss. Reason and logic can take you to the edge, but only faith can propel you across the gap. This metaphor encapsulates the essence of faith without reducing it to a simple definition. By presenting faith as an existential challenge, Kierkegaard invites readers to reflect on their own struggles with doubt and belief. The story of Abraham and Isaac. In Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard uses the story of Abraham and Isaac not as a straightforward moral lesson, but as a paradoxical illustration of faith. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son defies reason and ethical norms, forcing readers to confront the tension between faith and morality. Through this story, Kierkegaard challenges readers to consider the nature of their own relationship with God and the limits of their understanding. 5.4. Paradoxes and Irony. Kierkegaard often employed paradoxes and irony to disrupt conventional ways of thinking and to encourage deeper reflection. For example, faith as a paradox. Kierkegaard describes faith as an objective uncertainty held fast in the most passionate inwardness. This paradox highlights the tension between faith's subjective nature and the external demands for proof or certainty. The irony of the crowd. While society often celebrates conformity and consensus, Kierkegaard critiques the crowd as a source of spiritual stagnation. This irony forces readers to question their own participation in societal norms. By presenting ideas in paradoxical or ironic terms, Kierkegaard compels readers to wrestle with contradictions and seek their own resolutions. 5.5. The reader's role in indirect communication. Kierkegaard's method places the burden of interpretation squarely on the reader. Unlike traditional philosophy, which aims to clarify and explain, Kierkegaard's writings are deliberately challenging and ambiguous. This approach reflects his belief that understanding cannot be passively received. It must be actively pursued. Transforming the reader. Kierkegaard saw indirect communication as a way to transform the reader from a passive recipient of information into an active participant in the search for truth. By withholding definitive answers, he forces readers to engage with their own questions, doubts, and experiences. For example, a reader encountering the concept of the leap of faith might initially resist its apparent irrationality. However, through reflection and personal struggle, they may come to understand the deeper meaning of faith in their own life. Ambiguity as a tool. Kierkegaard's use of ambiguity serves to mirror the complexity of existential questions. Life, he argued, is not neat or easily categorized, and neither are the truths that guide it. By embracing ambiguity, Kierkegaard's writings reflect the uncertainty and open-endedness of human existence. 5.6 Modern Applications of Indirect Communication. Kierkegaard's method remains relevant in today's world, where individuals are inundated with information and often struggle to find meaning amid the noise. His emphasis on personal engagement and self-discovery offers a counterpoint to the passive consumption of knowledge. Education and personal growth. In education, Kierkegaard's approach can inspire teaching methods that prioritize critical thinking and self-reflection. Instead of providing students with ready-made answers, educators can encourage them to explore questions and develop their own perspectives. Spiritual practice. For those seeking spiritual growth, Kierkegaard's method underscores the importance of personal experience over dogmatic adherence to rules or rituals. Faith, he suggests, is not about accepting doctrines, but about engaging deeply with life's mysteries. Art and storytelling. Kierkegaard's use of parables and stories highlights the power of narrative to convey complex truths. In modern storytelling, whether in literature, film, or other media, his approach encourages creators to challenge audiences and provoke thought. 5.7 Kierkegaard's Enduring Legacy. Kierkegaard's indirect communication remains a radical and influential approach to philosophy. By prioritizing personal engagement and subjective truth, he redefined the relationship between writer and reader, teacher and student, believer and faith. His method invites us to take ownership of our existential journey, reminding us that the path to understanding is not linear or easy, but deeply rewarding. As Kierkegaard himself wrote, "The task must be made difficult, for only the difficult inspires the noble-hearted." Through indirect communication, he challenges us to rise to this task, discovering our own truths along the way. 6. Influences and legacy. Soren Kierkegaard's philosophical contributions, while underappreciated during his lifetime, have had a profound and lasting impact on both modern thought and the human understanding of existence. From existentialism to theology, literature, and psychology, Kierkegaard's ideas have permeated diverse fields, shaping the work of influential thinkers, writers, and artists. His legacy is a testament to the timeless relevance of his explorations into individuality, faith, and the challenges of authentic living. 6.1 Kierkegaard's impact on existentialism. Kierkegaard is often celebrated as the father of existentialism, a philosophical movement that emerged in the 20th century. Existentialism focuses on the individual's experience, freedom, and responsibility in an often absurd and indifferent world. While the term existentialism was coined much later, Kierkegaard's writings laid its foundation by emphasizing subjective truth and the importance of personal choice. Influence on Jean-Paul Sartre. Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most prominent existentialists, built upon Kierkegaard's assertion that existence precedes essence. While Kierkegaard approached this idea through a theological lens, Sartre secularized it, arguing that humans are not born with a predefined purpose, but must create their own meaning through actions. Kierkegaard's emphasis on the burden of choice and the anxiety it brings resonates deeply in Sartre's concept of bad faith, where individuals avoid responsibility by conforming to societal expectations. Impact on Martin Heidegger. Martin Heidegger, another towering figure in existentialism, drew heavily on Kierkegaard's exploration of despair and anxiety. Heidegger's concept of angst, the existential dread that arises from confronting one's freedom and mortality, echoes Kierkegaard's reflections on despair as the catalyst for self-awareness and authentic living. Connection to Friedrich Nietzsche. Although Friedrich Nietzsche and Kierkegaard approached philosophy from different angles, Nietzsche with his critique of religion and Kierkegaard with his defense of faith, their ideas intersect in significant ways. Both thinkers rejected conformity and challenged individuals to transcend societal norms to achieve a more authentic existence. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, Overman, parallels Kierkegaard's Knight of Faith, as both figures represent individuals who rise above the ordinary to embrace a higher calling. 6.2 Theological Contributions. Kierkegaard's influence on Christian theology is immense. His critiques of institutionalized religion and his focus on the individual's personal relationship with God have inspired generations of theologians and spiritual thinkers. Karl Barth and Neo-Orthodoxy. Karl Barth, a leading figure in the Neo-Orthodox movement, was deeply influenced by Kierkegaard's emphasis on the transcendence of God and the necessity of faith. Barth's rejection of liberal theology's rationalist approach echoes Kierkegaard's belief that divine truth cannot be fully grasped through human reason. Paul Tillich and Existential Theology. Paul Tillich integrated Kierkegaard's existential themes into his theological framework, emphasizing the role of anxiety and despair in the spiritual journey. Tillich's concept of the courage to be aligns with Kierkegaard's idea of the leap of faith as an act of existential bravery. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian and anti-Nazi dissident, admired Kierkegaard's call for authentic Christianity. Bonhoeffer's writings on costly grace and the dangers of cheap religiosity reflect Kierkegaard's critique of superficial faith and his insistence on the individual's direct accountability to God. 6.3 Literary and Cultural Influence. Kierkegaard's impact extends beyond philosophy and theology into literature and the arts. His exploration of existential themes has inspired some of the greatest literary works of the modern era. Fyodor Dostoevsky. The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky shared Kierkegaard's fascination with faith, doubt, and the human condition. In works like Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky delves into the psychological and spiritual struggles of his characters, often reflecting Kierkegaardian themes of despair, redemption, and the paradoxical nature of faith. For instance, the protagonist of Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov, mirrors Kierkegaard's aesthetic stage as he seeks to justify his actions through intellectual arrogance, only to find redemption through humility and faith. Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka's haunting and enigmatic works, such as The Trial and The Metamorphosis, are often described as existentialist allegories. Kafka's portrayal of alienation, absurdity, and the search for meaning resonates with Kierkegaard's exploration of the individual's struggle against societal pressures and existential despair. Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy's spiritual transformation later in life reflects many of Kierkegaard's insights. In works like Confession, Tolstoy grapples with questions of faith, mortality, and the search for purpose, echoing Kierkegaard's themes of despair and the leap of faith. 6.4 Psychological Contributions. Kierkegaard's insights into the human psyche have influenced the development of modern psychology, particularly existential and depth psychology. Sigmund Freud, and Carl Jung. While Kierkegaard's work predates the formal establishment of psychology, his exploration of despair and self-awareness anticipates many of the ideas developed by Freud and Jung. Kierkegaard's concept of the sickness unto death, a form of spiritual despair, parallels Jung's notion of the individuation process, where individuals confront their unconscious to achieve wholeness. Viktor Frankl and logotherapy. Viktor Frankl, the founder of logotherapy, explicitly credited Kierkegaard as an inspiration. Frankl's belief that meaning is the central motivating force in human life aligns with Kierkegaard's emphasis on personal responsibility and the search for purpose. Frankl's experiences in Nazi concentration camps, chronicled in Man's Search for Meaning, reflect Kierkegaardian themes of faith and resilience in the face of suffering. Rollo May and existential psychology. Rollo May, a pioneer of existential psychology, drew heavily on Kierkegaard's exploration of anxiety and freedom. May's work highlights the role of existential crises in personal growth, echoing Kierkegaard's belief that despair can be a catalyst for self-discovery and transformation. 6.5 Modern Relevance. Kierkegaard in today's world. Kierkegaard's ideas are as relevant today as they were in the 19th century. In an age marked by rapid technological advancements, social conformity, and existential uncertainty, his call for individuality and authentic living resonates deeply. The critique of conformity. Kierkegaard's critique of the crowd is particularly pertinent in today's hyper-connected world, where social media amplifies the pressure to conform. His insistence on the importance of personal responsibility challenges us to resist the allure of superficial validation and embrace our unique paths. The search for meaning. As more people grapple with feelings of alienation and existential despair, Kierkegaard's insights into the necessity of finding purpose through faith and personal choice offer a beacon of hope. His emphasis on subjective truth reminds us that meaning cannot be imposed from outside, but must be discovered within. Faith in the modern world. Kierkegaard's exploration of faith as a leap into the unknown speaks to contemporary spiritual seekers who struggle to reconcile religious belief with modern skepticism. His vision of faith as a deeply personal and transformative act offers a compelling alternative to institutionalized religion. 6.6 Kierkegaard's enduring legacy. Kierkegaard's legacy transcends disciplinary boundaries, influencing philosophy, theology, literature, psychology, and beyond. His insistence on individuality and authenticity challenges us to confront life's complexities with courage and introspection. As a thinker ahead of his time, Kierkegaard continues to inspire those who seek to live authentically and embrace the paradoxes of existence. In his own words, life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward. Kierkegaard's life and work embody this truth, reminding us that the journey toward self-discovery and meaning is as timeless as it is transformative. 7. Lessons from Kierkegaard for modern life. Soren Kierkegaard's philosophy, though rooted in 19th century Denmark, offers timeless lessons that resonate deeply in today's fast-paced, ever-changing world. As we grapple with questions of identity, purpose, and authenticity in the face of societal pressures, technological distractions, and existential uncertainty, Kierkegaard's insights provide guidance for living a meaningful and authentic life. 7.1 Facing Despair with Courage. One of Kierkegaard's most profound contributions is his exploration of despair as a central aspect of the human condition. While many view despair as something to be avoided or suppressed, Kierkegaard saw it as an opportunity for self-awareness and growth. Despair, he argued, is a symptom of the individual's failure to align with their true self, a signal that something deeper needs to be addressed. Understanding modern despair. In today's world, despair often takes the form of burnout from the relentless demands of work and social obligations. Alienation caused by social media, where comparisons and superficial connections create existential anxiety arising from uncertainty about the future or a lack of clear purpose. Transforming despair, Kierkegaard teaches us that despair, while painful, can be a catalyst for transformation. To overcome despair, acknowledge it. Instead of denying or numbing despair, embrace it as a call to deeper self-reflection. Seek authenticity. Ask yourself whether your current choices align with your true values and desires, rather than societal expectations. Take responsibility. Recognize that you have the freedom and the responsibility to shape your life in accordance with your authentic self. 7.2. Living authentically in a conformist world. Kierkegaard's critique of the crowd is particularly relevant in an age dominated by social media, mass consumerism, and cultural conformity. He warned against losing oneself in the collective, where individuality is sacrificed for the comfort of acceptance and the avoidance of judgment. The danger of the crowd today. In modern terms, the crowd can refer to social media culture, where likes and followers often dictate self-worth. Cultural norms, which pressure individuals to follow conventional paths in career, relationships, and lifestyle. Echo chambers, where individuals adopt the opinions of the majority without critical thought. How to live authentically. To resist the pull of the crowd, Kierkegaard encourages us to embrace solitude. Spend time alone to reflect on your own values, beliefs, and goals. Question societal norms. Challenge the assumptions and expectations imposed by society. Are they truly aligned with your personal ideals? Be true to yourself. Prioritize actions and decisions that reflect your individuality, even if they go against the grain. Living authentically requires courage, as it often involves standing apart from the majority. However, as Kierkegaard reminds us, the crowd is untruth. True fulfillment comes from embracing your unique path, not from seeking approval. 7.3. The role of faith in personal fulfillment. For Kierkegaard, faith is the ultimate act of individuality and authenticity. It represents a deeply personal relationship with the divine, one that transcends logic, societal norms, and even ethical conventions. While Kierkegaard's view of faith is rooted in Christianity, his insights have universal applications for those seeking spiritual fulfillment in a modern, often secular world. Faith as a leap. Kierkegaard's concept of the leap of faith challenges us to embrace uncertainty and trust in something greater than ourselves. This leap is not about blind belief, but about making a conscious choice to commit to a higher purpose or meaning, even when the outcome is unclear. Faith in modern life. In a world increasingly dominated by science and skepticism, faith can take many forms. Trust in a higher power. For those who are religious, faith can provide comfort and guidance in navigating life's uncertainties. Faith in one's purpose. For non-religious individuals, faith can mean trusting in their own abilities, values, or dreams, even when the path forward is uncertain. Faith in humanity. In times of division and conflict, faith can inspire hope and commitment to collective progress. Faith, in Kierkegaard's view, is not a passive state but an active, ongoing process that requires vulnerability, courage and perseverance. 7.4. Embracing freedom and responsibility. Kierkegaard believed that true freedom lies not in the absence of constraints, but in the ability to make authentic choices. With this freedom, however, comes the weight of responsibility. Modern life offers an unprecedented range of choices: careers, relationships, lifestyles, but this abundance can lead to paralysis by analysis or fear of making the wrong decision. The anxiety of freedom Kierkegaard described the anxiety that accompanies freedom as an essential part of the human experience. This anxiety arises from recognizing that we are responsible for creating our own lives, with no guarantees of success or certainty. How to navigate freedom. To embrace freedom without being overwhelmed. Accept imperfection. Recognize that no choice will ever be perfect, and that's okay. Growth comes from learning through experience. Commit to your choices. Avoid drifting through life by taking decisive actions that reflect your values. Reflect regularly. Periodically assess your life choices to ensure they remain aligned with your evolving sense of self. Freedom is both a privilege and a challenge. By embracing it with intention and accountability, you can lead a more meaningful and authentic life. 7.5. Finding meaning in an absurd world. In a world that often feels chaotic and devoid of inherent meaning, Kierkegaard's teachings remind us that meaning is not something we find. It's something we create. He rejected the idea that life's purpose is dictated by external forces, instead emphasizing the individual's responsibility to define their own purpose. The search for meaning today. Modern society often seeks meaning in external achievements, career success, material wealth, or social status. However, as Kierkegaard observed, these pursuits often lead to despair when their limitations become apparent. Creating your own meaning. To find meaning in life, identify your core values. Reflect on what truly matters to you, whether it's love, creativity, service, or spiritual growth. Pursue what resonates. Align your actions and goals with your values, even if they diverge from societal expectations. Embrace the journey. Recognize that meaning is not a fixed destination, but an ongoing process of discovery and creation. By taking ownership of your purpose, you can find fulfillment even in the face of life's uncertainties. 7.6. Overcoming the fear of death. Kierkegaard's reflections on mortality offer profound lessons for modern life. He viewed death not as a source of fear, but as a reminder of life's urgency and the importance of living authentically. Modern attitudes toward death. In contemporary culture, death is often avoided or sanitized, creating a sense of detachment from life's impermanence. This avoidance can lead to a superficial existence, focused on distractions rather than meaningful pursuits. Living with mortality. To live fully in the face of death, acknowledge its reality. Embrace mortality as a natural part of life, not as something to be feared or ignored. Focus on what matters. Let the awareness of death inspire you to prioritize relationships, passions, and experiences that bring genuine joy and fulfillment. Leave a legacy. Consider how your actions today will impact others and contribute to the world after you're gone. As Kierkegaard wrote, "The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have." By confronting death, we can live more intentionally and meaningfully. 7.7. The courage to be yourself. At the heart of Kierkegaard's philosophy is the call to embrace your true self, even in the face of uncertainty, doubt, and societal pressures. His teachings remind us that authenticity requires courage, faith, and a willingness to confront life's deepest questions. Practical steps for authentic living. Cultivate self-awareness. Regularly reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and actions to ensure they align with your authentic self. Take risks. Don't let fear of failure or judgment prevent you from pursuing what matters most to you. Trust the process. Accept that the journey to authenticity is ongoing and that setbacks are part of growth. Kierkegaard's philosophy offers a roadmap for living with intention, purpose, and integrity. In a world that often encourages conformity, his lessons challenge us to rise above the crowd and embrace the unique journey of being ourselves. Kierkegaard's insights are not abstract ideas meant for academic debate. They are tools for navigating the complexities of modern life. Whether facing despair, striving for authenticity, or seeking meaning in an uncertain world, his teachings remind us that the path to fulfillment lies within. By embracing our freedom, responsibility, and individuality, we can live with the courage and faith needed to discover our true selves. As Kierkegaard aptly put it, life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Let his wisdom inspire you to experience life in all its richness and complexity.